Welcome into a Monday edition of Daily Fantasy Live here on CBSSports.com. We are, of course, presented by the fine folks over at FanDuel. I'm Nick Costos, joined alongside Heath Cummings and the Oracle, Chris Towers. On this fine program today, we're going to get you set for the night of action in the association, some NBA talk on the program, Monday Night Football, some Thursday Night Football, a look ahead to NFL Week 10. But, gentlemen, we have to get it started off recapping yesterday, week number 9 in the National Football League. And the biggest news of the day, Steelers quarterback Ben Roethlisberger, guys, for the second time this season, he suffers an injury. It's a foot sprain. It's going to keep him out of this upcoming Sunday's game against the Cleveland Browns. Then the Steelers have their bye. Then they face the Seahawks. So definitely no Roethlisberger for this week. Let's talk about the trickle-down effect here, how this will affect D'Angelo Williams, Martavis Bryant, Antonio Brown. Heath, let's start with you. Ben Roethlisberger going down yesterday for Pittsburgh.
Well, obviously Landry Jones is no Ben Roethlisberger, but the fact is they're playing the Browns, so I'm not sure how much it really matters. The Steelers are going to be fine against the Browns with Landry Jones. D'Angelo Williams is going to be more than fine. He's going to run all over this team. Even Martavis Bryant and Antonio Brown, I don't worry about as much just because the opponent's going to be so bad.
You know, the one question that I have to ask here, when Landry Jones was in the lineup, it seems like not so much Antonio Brown, more Martavis Bryant. When Landry came in against Arizona, 2 touchdowns to Bryant, a touchdown to Martavis against Kansas City as well. Chris, are you looking at Martavis as potentially a better play than Antonio Brown coming up on Sunday?
No, I don't think he'll be a better play, but I think he's in play now, whereas, he's obviously always someone that you can consider playing, but with the way Landry Jones has targeted him, you definitely you upgrade him. Although I don't think, we're dealing with such a small sample size here. It's what? A game and a half of Landry Jones? Not even that, a game and a quarter, really. So we don't have a ton of sample size. Antonio Brown still had a decent day in that first Landry Jones start. So I'm not so sure I'm ready to put Martavis Bryant over him just because of that basically one quarter.
Well, I don't think you put him over him at all.
Yeah.
Now, of course, the main difference is Antonio Brown's 8,700.
Yeah.
Martavis Bryant's all the way down at 6,500. Now, for that big of difference in value, yeah, I'm probably leaning towards the Martavis Bryant side.
All right, now, in theory, Heath, what you said about D'Angelo Williams, it makes sense. The Cleveland Browns couldn't stop the 3 of us on the ground. So, in theory, you'd think that would spell a big game for D'Angelo Williams. But can't you also say then that the Browns stack the box, try and stop the run and dare Landry Jones to beat them? How do you see that?
Unless they're stacking the box with players from other teams, I don't think it's really going to matter. They don't have the players on their team to stack the box with and stop the run.
All right, well, speaking of not being able to stop the run and a running quarterback, the Green Bay Packers yesterday eviscerated by Cameron Newton and the Carolina Panthers. 3 passing touchdowns and a rushing touchdown for Cam. A huge day for him, and he's obviously had a great season, legitimate MVP candidate in terms of real football. Chris, do you think that Cam can keep sustaining this pace and keep it up down the stretch of the year?
Well, the one thing I want to see is he got Devin Funchess involved in a big play down the field, and I think that's probably the X factor. We know what to make of Jericho Cotchery and Ted Ginn. Those guys would they be the number 3 receiver on any other team?
Probably the Chiefs.
Maybe. They're pretty bad is what I'm saying.
Ted Ginn would be the number 2 behind Macklin in Kansas City.
All right. He'd be the number 2. But Devin Funchess is the only guy on this team that really has a chance to turn into something special. And maybe it takes him a while, and down the stretch, maybe he can give Cam Newton that weapon that makes him a 2 passing touchdowns per game guy. Because right now, you're really still relying on him being the goal line back to get his second touchdown every week for the most part. Obviously not in week 9.
Well, and it's not just that. I mean, he's doing it. He's done it 3 of the last 4 weeks. If he gets the second pass touchdown, he becomes a top 5 quarterback.
Yeah.
And he's not necessarily being priced. I mean, this week he's 4th because of the quarterbacks on bye. I'm not sure if he's the 4th most expensive quarterback on the slate that I'm super excited about playing him, even in a good matchup against Tennessee.
Yeah.
We just saw what they gave up to Drew Brees. But Tennessee's been pretty decent against the run. And Cam Newton gets some of his value on the ground. I'm not sure it's as good a value
But
for
when
him.
you look at they're decent against the run, that's between the 20s.
Yeah.
Cam Newton's the goal line back. He's not racking up huge rushing yardage. The big points come from him getting those 6 points for a rushing touchdown. And that is, I think, where he can be undervalued because a passing touchdown's 4 points on FanDuel. You're getting 6 for every rushing touchdown. So if you only look at the passing touchdowns for him, you might undervalue him.
All right, the muscle hamster, the Duggernaut, whatever the heck he's calling himself these days, Doug Martin. Not a great day for him yesterday. An early fumble glued him to the bench, and Charles Sims came in for Tampa Bay, 8 carries, 78 yards, used in the passing game as well. Gentlemen, how worried are you about the muscle hamster, the Duggernauts, moving forward here, looking ahead to this upcoming week and moving forward for Doug Martin?
I'm very worried about him. It seems like as long as he's doing everything perfectly fine, the coaching staff is great with him. As soon as one thing goes wrong, it's like, oh, we need to sit you on the bench. It's just one fumble. I don't really understand why it was that big a deal to Lovie Smith. It kind of irritated me that he was on the bench for as long as he was. The bigger problem, though, is what Charles Sims did when he came in.
And Chris, as I watched Charles Sims play this game yesterday, he looked very good. Is there any chance that Charles Sims actually the better running back in this Bucs backfield than Doug Martin?
No, I don't think so. He's not as good of a runner, but the passing game ability that he has already led to him cutting into his playing time. You know, Charles Sims has been getting 35 to 40% of the snaps a lot of the time lately, so that's keeping Doug Martin from really being on the field 80% of the time, like you see with someone like Marshawn Lynch or Matt Forte or Adrian Peterson, these number one backs. That's the bar that he has to get past. The one thing I will say is, if Lovie Smith's going to be so reactionary and pull a guy after one fumble, we might be one Charles Sims fumble away from
When he
Doug
fumbled
Martin.
later in the game.
Okay.
Charles Sims did in the fourth quarter fumble later in the game. So it'll be interesting to see if that carries over to next week or if it's only I'm mad at you right now, I'll get over it at halftime type of deal.
And I think also, you know, it's worth noting that Lovie Smith and Jason Light, the GM, they didn't bring Doug Martin in. They did bring Mike Evans in, and as we were talking, guys, Mike Evans actually dropped another pass, the worst 150-yard game in the history of the National Football League for Mr. Mike Evans yesterday. All right, next topic. Pride and poise, commitment to excellence, just win, baby. Derek Carr, another 4 touchdowns. This Raiders offense.
They didn't win.
They didn't win, but 35 points for fantasy owners. You know, I think pretty pleased with the output they got yesterday from Derek Carr.
You don't
Amari
get extra
Cooper,
points for a win.
And of course, that's exactly right. That's why he's the Oracle, Chris Stradamus. And of course, my guy, Michael Crabtree. So it's been a couple great weeks in a row here for AC/DC, Amari Cooper, Derek Carr, and the rest of this
You don't
Raiders
get to
offense.
tout AC/DC if you're talking about MC all the time.
Yeah, I don't know. I still got to go with AC/DC because that's a lot catchier. I don't know if we can work MC in there, though I do love Michael Crabtree. Can the Raiders offense, can they keep this up?
Sure, the talent is there. They've got a good running back. They've got great wide receivers and a quarterback who I'm not sure we're ready to say is good or great yet, but he's developing.
Oh, I'm ready to say he's good. And he might be great.
I'm definitely not ready to say he's great.
Wait, hold on. You're not ready to say Derek Carr is good?
I'll say he can be there because the one thing he's done really well in both of his seasons is complete passes in the red zone. Last season, he was one of the best in the NFL at that, even though he was kind of mediocre between the 20s. And so when we were looking at this season, we thought, what's going to regress? Is he going to be more of the guy who was mediocre between the 20s, or was that red zone accomplishment something that was a harbinger of things to come, of good things to come, a sign that he was really better than his overall numbers?
He's only 7,500 this week. He plays against Minnesota. He had a good game, threw 4 touchdowns against the Jets in what was maybe the most embarrassing Jets defensive game in the last year.
Or at least until the week before when the Patriots laid it on them, too.
Well, that's the Patriots, though.
Yeah,
You expect
that's
that.
what they do.
When that happened, when you give up 4 passing touchdowns to the Raiders, nobody's accepted the idea that Derek Carr is good.
But we talked about this last week. One of our believe it or nots was, are the Raiders actually a good team? I think they proved it again yesterday. This is a good football team. And Derek Carr is a good quarterback.
He's got some interception regression coming. He's got a 1.5% interception rate. No, that's not sustainable. He's going to throw some more interceptions moving forward.
All right, last night, Sam Bradford. Guys, he looked decisive in the pocket, stepping up, making throws. His awareness was actually pretty good compared to earlier in the season when it was just about non-existent. And how about Jordan Matthews? Took the bye week and figured out, learned how to catch the football again. How about that from Jordan Matthews? You guys trust this Eagles offense, specifically the pass game, moving forward with Bradford, Matthews, and company?
I don't know that I completely trust them, but they're going to get enough volume that they won't be terrible, if that's the biggest endorsement I can give them. I did think coming into this week Jordan Matthews was going to be better. He was. I expect him to be probably a borderline, maybe even average wide receiver 2 the rest of the way. He should be underpriced for a couple more weeks, so that'll be good.
What about DeMarco Murray and Ryan Matthews, Chris? What do you see from these two guys?
If it was just one of them, I would trust them because it's turned into a decent offense for them. They're both getting the opportunities, but how do you know which one's going to score on any given week? How do you know how they're going to split? You know, DeMarco Murray's going to get more work, but is this one of those weeks where Murray gets 70% of the snaps or 51% of the snaps? That's my problem with them, and this was the problem coming into the season.
Yeah.
That they're both good backs. If they were the feature back anywhere, I'd like them both.
Murray's had at least 20 touches in his last 4 games.
Yeah.
I think as long as that type of volume continues, you can count on him to be a borderline running back 1.
Yeah.
And also on Sunday Night Football, for the first time this year, gentlemen, can we do it? Throw up the X. Des Bryant came out. What a great touchdown reception that was. Maybe not the best decision from Matt Castle on that ball, but Des ended up coming down with it. Tony Romo's going to be back in a couple weeks. How's Des Bryant going to perform here the rest of the year? You trust Des? Is he back to elite wide receiver 1?
Oh, yeah, he's definitely elite wide receiver 1. It's what I think he's in the top 5. Where you place him in that top 5, that's a question mark, because Julio Jones, Antonio Brown, assuming he's going to get Big Ben back very quickly. A.J. Green's been spectacular so far this year. Odell Beckham, DeAndre Hopkins. Dez is right in the mix with those guys. I could listen to an argument that says he's top 3. I could also listen to one that says he's just outside of the top 5.
I would have to put him outside of the top 3, maybe outside of the top 5, just because there's so many great wide receivers. And Matt Castle's still his quarterback for at least another
What about
game.
when Romo's back?
Oh, he's top 3. I don't think anything about what we've seen from him, as long as he can stay healthy on a week-to-week basis, if we're talking about daily fantasy, I think you can view him as a top 3 once Romo's back. It's the long term where there's still a risk of re-injury that I'm concerned.
Who are you kicking out of the top 3?
Brown.
Not Julio.
Brown.
Antonio Brown.
Yes.
Even if Ben's back.
I don't think Ben's going to be back right after the bye.
Love it.
It's really tough.
That's everything I've heard said he's coming back after the bye. If he comes, let's just say, okay.
It is against Seattle, Heath.
If he does. If he comes back after the bye, and it's the same week that Romo comes back, Antonio or Dez rest of the season?
Antonio.
Okay.
All right, we'll continue to break down week number 9 in the National Football League. Coming up next, it's a little segment we like to call Believe It or Not. And remember, if you'd like to play FanDuel's $250,000 NFL Snap, it's only $2 to enter, $20,000 to first place, and the top 26,037 entries cash. That's the $250,000 Monday NFL Snap, $2 to enter, only on FanDuel.com. Use the promo code DFLive.